वांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. First of all, my humble obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Seek your blessings so that I can say something in the glory of the Lord. Also, seek blessing of His Grace Simishra Prabhu for engaging me in this seva so that I can do some Shastra Adhyayan. We are reading Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 20, the goal of Vedanta Sutra. And Krishna tells what is the goal of the Vedas or Vedanta Sutras. Vedanta Sutras are the commentary on the Vedas. It's a can say summary of or the crux of. And what is the Veda and Vedanta? So Vedanta is at the end of the Vedas, okay, when it is summarized or commentary is given. And what is the goal of that Vedanta study? Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo Vedanta krit veda vid evacha. So, uh, Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita that by studying the Vedas, what do you know? You know me. And I am the knower of the Vedas and I am the creator of the Vedas too. And you cannot know this without my mercy. Sarvasichaham hriday sannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. From me comes the forgetfulness, remembrance, and the knowledge. So, this knowledge which we are going to discuss today in this chapter by Lord Chaitanya is something which we cannot uh, understand without the mercy of the Lord. Okay. So I'm sharing and I have printout as well. So I'll be looking down, reading, from some of the notes and the highlights. Um, but I'm sharing so that if you want to follow. And we'll quickly go through the first part, which was discussed yesterday, and then try to focus on the second part. It's a relatively good length chapter, so should be able to do about it. Um, so first is that it is concluded that the Lord Krishna or Vishnu is not of this material world. No? Uh, he belongs to a spiritual world. One who considers him to be demigod of the material world is a great offender or blasphemer. Lord Vishnu is not subject to perception by material senses, nor can he be realized by mental speculation. Unlike in the material world, there is always a difference between body and the soul. There is no difference between the body and the soul of the Supreme Lord. So that's the main point of the first paragraph, that the Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha. No, He is, our body is different from the soul. Our body, when our body requires the union of mother and father, male and female, to be produced, and is made of the blood, stool, bones, different things which are actually called abominable. No, they are actually, when in olden age, when Rishi Munis, for the benefit of the world, will engage in different yagyas. Uh, these demons will throw these different things. What will they throw? They'll throw blood. They will throw, bones. They'll throw stool. No, that's what we are carrying in our body. So it is something which is very uh, abominable. But that's not the case with the Lord's body. Lord's body is um, complete. We know that, Krishna appeared, Bhai Prakat Kripala. He appeared as is, not, like ordinary appearance of people. Second paragraph, uh, the crux of that is living entity and Vishnu are not the same. So, material things are enjoyed by the living entities because the living entities are superior in quality, whereas material nature is inferior. Thus, the superior nature, the living entities can enjoy the inferior nature, matter. Because Lord Vishnu is in no way touched by matter, he has no tendency to enjoy material nature the way the living entities do. The living entities cannot attain knowledge of Vishnu by enjoying their habits of mental speculation. The infinitesimal living entities are not the enjoyers of Vishnu, but they are enjoyed by Vishnu. Only the greatest offender thinks that Vishnu is enjoyed. The greatest blasphemy is to consider Vishnu and the living entities on the same level. So this is again very clear point that, and it will be further clarified. So this is nothing but, uh, through this chapter we are understanding the supreme personality of Godhead. And first point we understood is that supreme personality of Godhead's body and the soul is not two different things, is Satchidananda Vigraha. Now second point we are understanding is that the we are Jiva Tattvas are not the same as the Supreme Lord. We have these habits of mental speculation, and it will come in further, context will come in. We'll try to quickly move through the first few chapters so that we can try to, respect time and go through the remaining uh, later part in more detail. So now it will be explained that how uh, the jiva and the supreme are different. So the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is compared to a blazing fire, and the innumerable living entities are compared to sparks emanating from that fire. Although both the Supreme Lord and the living entities are qualitatively fire, there is yet a distinction. Vishnu, the Supreme, is infinite, whereas the living entities, which are but sparks, are infinitesimal. The infinitesimal living entities are emanations from the original infinite spirit. In their constitutional position as infinitesimal spirits, there is no trace of matter. So now, what is that? What is being done when you do the analysis of something? You can do both from the similarity and then the differences perspective. So first we are looking at that how they are similar. They are similar qualitatively. What are similar? The jivas and the supreme, or the jiva and the bhagwan. That just like a fire and its spark are same, because both have heat, both have light, you know, um, but at the same time, one is uh, different from the other in terms of quantity. So at qualitative level, they are same. Similar other examples have been taken for this. Um, for example, the drop of water and the ocean, drop of water from the ocean and the entire ocean. No, again, infinite, the ocean, and then infinitesimal is the drop of the water from the ocean. Qualitative wise, they are same, but quantity wise, there's huge difference. Okay, so that's the thing which is being highlighted. Okay, that point will be further highlighted. The living entities are not as great as Narayan, Vishnu, who is beyond this material creation. Even Shankaracharya accepts Narayan to be beyond the material creation, since neither Vishnu nor the living entity are of the material creation. Someone may inquire, why were the small particles of spirit created at all? The answer is the supreme absolute truth is complete in his perfection when he is both infinite and infinitesimal. If he were simply infinite but not infinitesimal, he would not be perfect. The infinite portion is the Vishnu Tattva or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the infinitesimal portion is the living entity. So, here again, that same point is further being explained. Um, Also, Shankaracharya is being introduced, and Shankaracharya is again here. uh, First point is that Shankaracharya is being used, or his quotation is being used to uh, prove that Supreme Lord is beyond this material world. And later on, some of his teachings will be countered as well. It is just like, there are some parts which someone is teaching may be right and the other parts will be wrong. Uh, or actually we'll see that some parts which will be timely necessity. That's how actually Lord Chaitanya is describing, or Srila Prabhupada is translating into that. Those were teachings of Shankaracharya were timely necessity. Once we get to that paragraph, we'll dwell a little more on that. Okay. And there is one question being asked. Why were the small particles created at all? Why jivas were to be created? You know, um, and um, there are multiple answers given. In fact, I noted down three answers. First answer is that in this paragraph that if something is complete, it has to have both the parts. How can some uh, in fact, there's one time someone asked Srila Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, can Krishna create something as heavy as that even he cannot lift? Krishna lifted Govardhan Parvat. So, can he create something which even he cannot lift? Krishna, in his Varahadev form, lifted the entire planet Earth on his tusk. Forget about that. Um, Garvodakshai Vishnu form, he's carrying in on a lotus flower and its stem in his navel, and the entire 14 planetary systems are inside that. So somebody may say that, oh, Krishna created Govardhan Parvat, that's so heavy. But then if you look at Varadev's, he created he lifted the entire Earth planet. So, oh, then that's even heavier. If we look at the position of Garvodakshai Vishnu, who is carrying the entire planetary system on a lotus, inside a lotus flower, and he's carrying on his navel. At least we can use um, you know our head to carry something, we can use our hand to lift something, head to, but you know Krishna doesn't need to do that. Angani yasya shaklendriya vrittimanti. Krishna can do whatever he wants with whatever body part he has. Okay? So that's first answer which is given, the why. Oh, So coming back to, so that person asked, so Srila Prabhupada said, yes, Krishna can create something so heavy that even he cannot lift, but then he can lift it too. That's the beauty of him. The second answer for this question, that why were the small particles created, is due to the infinite desires of the Supreme Personality of God. The spirit, the spiritual world exists, and due to the infinitesimal desires of the living entities, the material world exists. And due to the infinite, now because of the desires, this material world is created and all these people are created. When the infinitesimal entities are engaged in trying to fulfill their infinitesimal desires for material enjoyment, they are called Jiva Shakti. But when they are dovetailed with the infinite, they are called liberated souls or Mukta Jiva. Baddha Jiva, Jiva Shakti will have two types, Baddha and Mukta. There is no need to ask, therefore, why God created the infinitesimal portions. They are simply the complementary side of the Supreme. It is doubtlessly, it is doubtlessly essential for the infinite to have infinitesimal portions which are inseparable parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Because the living entities are infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme, there is a reciprocation of feelings between the infinite and the infinitesimal. Had there been no infinitesimal living entities, the Supreme Lord would have been inactive, and there would not be variegatedness in spiritual life. This is the third reason which is given, that Supreme Lord is Satchidanand. Anand is another part, where he is in bliss, he is blissful. So to have Anand, you have to have reciprocation of the rasas. And then if there is no reciprocation of the rasas, then how is there Anand? Okay. There would be no meaning of a king if there were no subjects, and there would be no meaning of the supreme God if there were no infinitesimal living entities. Okay? How can there be meaning of the word Lord if there is no one to rule? The conclusion is that living entities are expansions of the energy of the Supreme Lord, and that the Supreme Lord and the personality of Godhead Krishna is the energetic. So these are the reasons, three reasons given that why. One is that it's just the desire. Second is that it makes the infinite complete by having the infinitesimal counterpart. And the third one is that what's the meaning of uh, Lord when there is no one to lord over? Okay. Uh, Now, next one is further explanation of infinite and infinitesimal. That in all Vedic literatures, including Bhagavad Gita and Vishnu Puran, much evidence is given to distinguish between the energy and the energetic. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.14, it is clearly stated that earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the five gross elements of the material world, and the mind, intelligence, and false ego. The three subtle elements are Lord's energy. All material nature is divided into these eight elements, which together comprise his inferior nature or the energy. Another name for this inferior nature is Maya or illusion. Beyond these eight inferior elements is his superior energy, which is called Para Prakriti. This Para Prakriti comprises the living entities who are found in great numbers throughout the material world. The purport is that the Supreme Lord is the absolute truth, the energetic, and that as such he has energies. When one of his energies is not properly manifested or when it is covered by some shadow, it is called Maya Shakti. The material cosmic manifestation is product of that Maya Shakti. Yeah, there are many names. So here again, going into details of what are the different energies of the Lord. Um, and sorry, the summary of this particular paragraph is that everything comes from the Supreme Lord. Krishna says, "Aham sarvasya prabho mata sarvam pravartate." So everything is coming from Krishna. And here, what are those? There are three main things. One is the spiritual energy, other is the material energy, and in between is the marginal potency, or called Jiva Shakti, or called, Para Prakriti. That's another name which is given. Okay. Then, um, next one is that what happens. So here, in this particular paragraph, it is explained that when these Jiva Shaktis are under the influence of Maya, they have uh, they have a identity which is lost. And then, uh, does that mean that liberation is something where you lose even this identity, or false identity? When you are under the influence of Maya, you have false identity. But does that mean that when you are liberated, your identity is actually lost? That's what is being answered. The living entities are factually beyond this covered inferior energy. They have their pure spiritual existence, their pure identity, and their pure mental activities, all beyond the manifestation of this material cosmos. All the living entities, mind, intelligence, and identity are beyond the range of this material world. When he enters into the material world due to his desire to lord it over matter, his original mind, intelligence, and body become covered by the material energy. When he is again free of the coverings of this material inferior energy, he is called liberated, or mukta. When he is liberated, he has no false ego, but his real ego again comes into existence. Foolish mental speculators think that after liberation, one's identity is lost, but that is not so, because the living entity is eternally part and parcel of God. When he is liberated, he revives his original, eternal, part and parcel identity. The realization of Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit, not this body, does not mean that living entity loses his identity. At the present moment, a person may consider himself to be matter, but in liberated state, he will understand that he is not matter, but spirit soul, part of the infinite. To become Krishna conscious or spiritually conscious and to engage in the transcendental loving service of Krishna are signs of the liberated stage. So here we can understand few points. Liberation doesn't mean that you lose the identity. In fact, it means that you know your real identity. And another thing towards this last statement we can say is understand that in the liberated state, what do? You become Krishna conscious or spiritual conscious. And after that, your activities are transcendental loving service of the Lord. If somebody is doing this thing, is Krishna conscious and engaged in the service of the Lord, then that person is already liberated, or is already in the already mukta. No? It's not that something which um, he will gain much more beyond, because there is nothing beyond being Krishna conscious. Even in the spiritual world, you'll be doing the same thing. You'll be Krishna conscious, and you'll be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Okay? Um, so that's what is the purport of or the crux of this particular paragraph, that you don't lose your identity at the liberative stage. Uh, and we go forward. In Vishnu Purana 6.7.61, it is stated Vishnu Sakti Para Prokta Kshetragyakya Tatha Para Avidya Karma Samgyanya Tritya Shaktir Ishyate. There, the energy of the Supreme Lord is divided in three: Para, Kshetragya, and Avidya. The Para energy is actually the energy of the Supreme Lord Himself. The Kshetragya energy is the living entity, and Avidya energy is the material world or Maya. It is called avidya or ignorance because under the spell of material energy, one forgets his actual position and his relationship with the Supreme Lord. The conclusion is that the living entities represent one of the energies of the Supreme Lord. As infinitesimal parts and parcel of the Supreme, they are called Jiva. If the jivas are artificially placed on the same level with the infinite supreme because both of them are Brahman or spirit, then bewilderment will certainly be the result. Okay. So, few points here. First is that here para is being considered, para word is used, and then para word came above as well. Para prakriti, but we have to know the difference. Para means general, para word means beyond. So para prakriti means beyond prakriti or beyond the material nature, and that's what the jivas are. But here, para is one of the para energy of the Lord, and in this case, beyond this material world, and that means that the supreme energy of the Lord or the spiritual energy of the Lord, okay, and that is Lord Himself. Okay, and then Kshetragya are the Jiva Tattvas. Okay. So different difference. One is Para Shakti and the other is Para Prakriti Shakti. And second point which is to be understood is that placing the Lord um, and the part and parcel of the Lord at the same level. There is a huge difference between the quantity. Quality maybe it's same, but quantity is different, and that's why if we put at the same, then bewilderment will definitely come. Okay, and Prabhupada is or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making this point because now comes the introduction of Mayavad philosophy. Generally, Mayavadi philosophers are perplexed before a learned Vaishnava because the Mayavadis cannot explain the cause of the bondage of the living entities. They simply say it is due to ignorance, but they cannot explain how the living entity can be covered by ignorance if they are supreme. The actual reason is that the living entities, although qualitatively one with the supreme, are infinitesimal, not infinite. Had they been infinite, there would have been no possibility of their being covered by ignorance. Because the living entity is infinitesimal, he can be covered by an inferior energy. The foolishness and the ignorance of the Mayavadis are revealed when they try to explain how the infinite can be covered by ignorance. It is offensive to attempt to qualify the infinite by arguing that he is subject to the spell of ignorance. It is in that Vedanta Aham Brahmasmi, you know, that yes, Aham Brahmasmi means that you are part and parcel of the Supreme. Okay, it's not that you start, sitting at the same level. You're not at the same level as Supreme. You're part and parcel of the Supreme. Okay, um, and and again on the liberation, Mayavad philosophy is then on the liberation, one becomes Lord or merges into the Lord, and that's where this question is being asked. That if that is the case, that means the Prakriti is superior than the Lord, because if we are Lord, then we are covered by that and we are under the ignorance. How can we be under the ignorance if we are above the ignorance? And if we are under the Prakriti, or the Lord is under the Prakriti, then how is the Lord? And who created Prakriti? Who lords over the Prakriti? No? So, um, so that's why it is a very wrong understanding. Okay. Then we go forward. And this is where the timely necessity part in this verse, chapter, this paragraph comes. Although Shankara attempted to cover the Supreme Lord by his Mayavad philosophy, he was simply following the order of the Lord. Okay? It should be understood that his teachings were a timely necessity but not a permanent fact. In the Vedanta Sutra, the distinction between the energy and the energetic is accepted from the very beginning. The second aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra, that is Janmadhyasya, clearly states that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the source of all emanations. Thus, the emanations are the energy of the Supreme, whereas the Supreme himself is the energetic. Shankara has falsely argued that if the transformation of the energy is accepted, the Supreme Absolute Truth cannot remain immutable. But this is not true. Despite the fact that unlimited energy is always being generated, Supreme Absolute Truth remains always the same. He is not affected by the emanations of the unlimited energies. Shankaracharya has therefore incorrectly established this theory of illusion. So, few points to note here. One is that uh, Mayavad philosophy was necessary at that time. Um, we have to understand the chronology of it. In Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada has explained this chronology that uh, first there was Vedic culture, then Vedic culture deteriorated, and in in the name of Vedic culture, in the name of doing yajnas, people started indulging in the meat eating. Okay? In the name of animal sacrifices. They're doing the sacrifices, and in the name of sacrifices, we're doing animal sacrifices. And because of that, Lord understood that if these people are using the Vedas for as a foundation to perform these animal sacrifices and then perform the uh, and engage into indulge into this meat eating, they are never going to get liberated. So Lord appeared as Buddha, Lord Buddha, and he said that forget about the Vedas, follow my teachings, which is nirvana, no? Where ahimsa paramo dharma, you know, not harming any living entity is the ultimate dharma, is the ultimate duty. And after that was established, then Lord Shankaracharya came, who is the incarnation of Lord Shiva, and he established that you can achieve nirvana. Nirvana is something which is spoken about in our Vedas itself. So even though you are trying to follow Lord Buddha's teachings and you are trying to achieve liberation or nirvana, that is actually the teaching of the Vedas. But he stopped there. He did not say that that is the only one step towards liberation. It's not the ultimate liberation. Okay? Um, Nirvana or liberation or merging into the Brahman is Bhagwan can be realized into three stages: Brahma, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. And Brahman is the source of light, a light form of the Supreme Lord, and then Paramatma is the localized form of the Supreme Lord, and Bhagwan uh, is the personal form of the Supreme Lord. Personality of Godhead. That's why Srila Prabhupada always refers to Supreme Personality of God. So Lord Shankaracharya only took till the Brahman realization, and that's why here it is being said that it is a timely necessity. It is not a permanent fact. Uh, and we can understand it by that if we are into a deceased condition that actually will come in when we are come further in this chapter, the when we are under the spell of Maya, we are under the influence of disease. Okay, we have forgotten our real identity. We are under the influence of false identity. And just like somebody who is under the disease may be going through some pain for time being, and as a necessity one is given pain medications. That pain medications may include drugs which are addictive in nature. But at the same time, the person who is um, prescribing it knows the timeliness of it. Otherwise, person may, uh, out of pain, get into some kind of pain anxiety, some kind of, will not be able to bear it. So that's why it is a timely necessity. But at the same time, we have to know that it is something which has to be corrected. And the actual permanent fact has to be established. For example, okay, if you are going through maybe back pain, you can take some pain medications to alleviate for some time. But at the same time, that's not the final treatment. The final treatment is that you get your back muscles stronger so that you don't get these back pains. If you're having shoulder pain, get your shoulder muscles stronger so that you don't get the shoulder pain. You go through the physiotherapists, you go through the chiropractor to work it out. And temporary. So just like that, Lord Shankaracharya's teachings were timely necessity at that time to re-establish the Vedas. And once the Vedas were re-established, then Krishna again came, Krishna again came in the form of Lord Chaitanya, and he's saying that you are studying the Vedas, but you're not studying and understanding it completely. Because see, what is Krishna saying in Bhagavad Gita? That Vedaischa sarver aham eva vedyo. There is no point of reading the Vedas if you don't know me through them. No? So that's what is the permanent fact. Okay? So we cannot, we can understand the shortcomings of the teachings of Shankaracharya, but we have to understand that those were timely necessity. Okay? Then the second point is that then argument goes on that what were the falsities, what are the shortcomings in the argument of Shankaracharya. So here this second aphorism is being discussed, that Janmadiyasya. Now, one thing we have to understand is that we always think from the perspective of our experiences. It's very difficult to go beyond our experiences. It takes a really great teacher to guide us through those challenges. Okay. So our experience, what is our experience? That if something comes from the other, then it has to be, the original has to be modified. Okay, that's what it is. The Shankara has falsely argued that if the transformation of energy is accepted, the supreme absolute truth cannot be immutable. Immutable means which doesn't change. But if everything is coming from Lord, then Lord is changing. His energies are being separated. That means if he had, some energy, uh, and you took out some portion, then if something had 1,000 calories, you took out 50% of it. That means now it is half of that, even if you take tiny little. But that's not how, that's the falsity of the argument. And then how that is falsity of the argument, our Vedas say that. And here acharyas and Mahaprabhu is giving various examples of that. No, in Ishopanishad, the invocation verse is Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. From the complete, this complete has come. And even after the complete has come, the complete is left. Infinite minus infinite is equal to infinite. So you can take infinite from the infinite. This is a maths formula. We all, those who are with some science background and mathematics background will understand this very easily, that when you subtract infinite from infinite, then infinite is remaining. When you add infinite with infinite, what is remaining? Infinite is remaining. So now we'll go to the next um, paragraph. Ramanujacharya has discussed this point very nicely. One may argue, since there was only one absolute truth before the creation of this material world, how is it possible that living entities emanated from him? If he were alone, how could he have produced or generated the infinitesimal living entities? In answer to this question, the Vedas state that everything is generated from the absolute truth, everything is maintained by the absolute truth, and after annihilation, everything enters into the absolute truth. This statement from the Upanishads makes it clear that when the living entities are liberated, they enter into the supreme existence without changing their original constitutional position. Okay? Then we must always remember that the Supreme Lord has created functions and that the infinitesimal energies have their creative functions also. It is not that their creative function is lost when they are liberated and enter into the Supreme after the dissolution of the material body. On the contrary, the living on the contrary, the creative function of the living entity is properly manifested in the liberated state. If the living entity's activities are manifest even when he is materially conditioned, then how is it possible for his activities to stop when he attains liberation? The living entities entering the state of liberation may be compared to a bird entering a tree, or an animal entering the forest, or a plane entering the sky. In no case are activities stopped. So, again, the example being given that, and the earlier questions answer being given, and the point being refuted that after liberation, you are not losing the identity. It's just like a bird entering the tree, returning home. Doesn't mean that now bird stop existing. No, bird is still there, has still activity. And another point is that if liberated state is higher, then how can somebody who has activities, identities, and thinking power can lose all that and still go to the higher stage? No, in the higher stage you gain more. You don't lose what you already have. No, so those are the 2 points being mentioned. Another thing is being mentioned in this is that the Supreme Lord has his creative function. So, because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we will also have creative functions always. We must always remember the when explaining the second aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, Shankara has most unceremoniously tried to explain that Brahman or the Supreme Absolute Truth is impersonal. He has also cunningly tried to switch the doctrine of byproducts into the doctrine of change. For the Supreme Absolute Truth, there is no change. It is simply that a byproduct results from his inconceivable powers of action. In other words, a relative truth, a byproduct, is the is produced out of the supreme truth. For example, when a chair is produced out of crude wood, it is said that a byproduct is produced. The supreme absolute truth, Brahman, is immutable, and when we find a byproduct, the living entity or this cosmic manifestation, it is a transformation of the supreme's energy or a byproduct of the supreme. It is like milk being transformed into yogurt. In this way, if we study the living entities in the cosmic manifestation, it will appear that they are not different from the original absolute truth, but from the Vedic literature, we understand that absolute truth has varieties of energy and that the living entities and the cosmic manifestation are but a demonstration of his energies. The energies are not separated from the energetic. Therefore, the living entity and the cosmetic manifestation are inseparable truth, part of the absolute truth. Such a conclusion regarding the absolute truth and the relative truth should be acceptable by any sane man. So, what is being discussed here again? Same point, the energy and energetic. And energy and energetic are not inseparable. So, we being part and parcel of the Supreme, we are separated. We are qualitatively same, but we are not at the same quantity. So, we being part of the Supreme, you can, from that angle, you can say that we are Supreme, but not from the quantity perspective. Okay. We are, so just like uh, just like the sun and its rays are existing together. The rays, sun rays are uh, the reasons sun rays are present because of the sun. So we cannot say that sun rays is same as sun. Okay? But the sun rays are part and parcel of the sun. So just like that, we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So in that way, all these are energies of the Supreme Lord, including the material nature, and they are uh, basically, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining here is the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bhed, that's inconceivable, being separate and at the same time same. Bhed or Bhed, no? Being same as well as
Yeah,
separate.
there is Anna.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah, milk is there.
Hare Krishna, Hare Okay, so next we read the Supreme Absolute Truth has his inconceivable potency, and out of which his cosmic manifestation has been produced. In other words, the Supreme Absolute Truth supplies the ingredients, and the living entities and the cosmic manifestation are the byproducts. In Taittiriya Upanishad, it is clearly stated Yato va imani bhutani jayante. The absolute truth is the original reservoir of all ingredients and the material world, and its living entities are produced from those ingredients. So, again, same thing that Supreme Lord is the source of all. Okay, and then comes here The less intelligent persons who cannot understand this doctrine of byproducts cannot grasp how the cosmic manifestation and the living entity are simultaneously one with and different from the absolute truth. Not understanding this, one concludes that the doctrine of byproduct implies that absolute truth itself is transformed. So, here, a few examples after this are given. Um, so, what are those examples? Main point here is that, well, if something comes from something, then the original will transform. But Lord Chaitanya is trying to explain that absolute truth is immutable, Purnamada Purnamidam. No? So, what does that means is that giving examples, and as I mentioned earlier, that our mind is something which is conditioned, and that's why we actually can it takes a very expert teacher to guide us through. So that's why now there is examples coming. What are the examples? One example which is coming in is of the sun god. uh, it's later in this particular words. uh, in fact, in the very next one, uh, the sun has been producing unlimited energy from time immemorial. Now, sun is not shrinking in size, or sun doesn't seem to be dying. Okay, so we can understand from that if sun, which is part of this material world, can continue doing this for unlimited time, then why can't things keep on coming from Lord, and at the same time, Lord is not reducing in its energy or its strength? Okay, that's first. And second example which is given is of touchstone. Touchstone is something which is a material object again, and it is also called in Hindi Paras Patthar, and its quality is that it can touch anything and convert it into, it can touch iron and convert it into gold. But by that, it doesn't mean that on every conversion the touchstone is losing its power. So these are the two examples which are being given to make one understand that there is make one understand that how the Supreme Lord, when these different worlds are coming, different jivas are coming out of the Supreme Lord, different shaktis, different energy. It's not that the Supreme Lord is reducing in its his strength. Okay? Then after this, we go a little forward and read this. Understanding the inconceivable energy of the Absolute is the only solution to the question of duality. This is because duality arises from inconceivable energy of the Absolute Truth. Okay? By his inconceivable energies, the Supreme Absolute Truth can remain unchanged, yet produce this cosmic manifestation in all its living entities. Just as a touchstone can produce unlimited qualities of gold and yet remain unchanged, because the absolute truth has such inconceivable energy, the material quality of ignorance cannot pertain to him. The true variegatedness which exists in the absolute truth is a product of his inconceivable energies. Indeed, it can be safely concluded that this cosmic manifestation is but a byproduct of his inconceivable energies. Once we accept the inconceivable energies of the Supreme Lord, we will find that there is no duality at all. The expansion of the energies of the Supreme Lord is as true as the Supreme Lord Himself. But despite all the variegated manifestations of the Supreme Lord's energies, there is no question of transformation for the Supreme Lord Himself. Once again, the example of the touchstone can be cited. In spite of producing unlimited quantities of gold, the touchstone remains the same. We therefore hear from sages. Here, some sages say that Supreme is the ingredient cause of the cosmic manifestation. Okay. Then there was another example given. So this is very clear here that how the Supreme Lord is still immutable and at the same time producing so many uh, byproducts in the form of energies, in the form of the spirit souls, and in the form of this material world. Okay. Another example which is given Aham Brahmasmi, for that Mayavadi philosophers say that well, you are mistaking the mistaken identity is same as you are thinking of rope as a snake. But that example is correct, but it's in a wrong context, and that's what Mahaprabhu explains. The example of the rope and the snake is not irregular. When we accept a rope to be a snake, it is to be understood that we have experienced a snake previously. Otherwise, how can the rope be mistaken for a snake? Thus, the conception of a snake is not untrue or unreal in itself. It is the false identification that is the untrue or unreal. When by mistake we consider the rope to be snake, that is our ignorance. But the very idea of snake is not itself ignorance. Similarly, when we accept a mirage in the desert to be water, there is no question of water being a false concept. Water is a fact, but it is mistake to think that there is water in the desert. Okay? So it is the problem is that that these comparisons are wrong, but the idea itself is right. Okay? There is snake, there is mirage. Okay? This is the perverted reflection. It's not that this world is, Jagat Mithya. It's not that this world is false. This world is there. This world is existing. This world is the energy of the Lord. It's just that the uh, uh, it is a perverted reflection of the main world. We went a little above already, and I think we have few more paragraphs. I'll quickly summarize what does this means. These paragraphs are. Um, so after this, there is no complete understanding. This is the chapter's name is the goal of Vedanta study. That means to understand the Supreme Lord. And we understood the Lord, how he is different, how he is non-different from his body. There is no body and the soul separation between the Lord. And then we looked at that how Lord has different energies, and we jivas are also energy. This material creation is also energy. And then the final point which is being mentioned in this particular chapter is the sound form of the Lord, Shabda Brahma. And here it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that Omkar, Krishna has mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, that I am the, among the letters, I am the Pranavakshar or Omkar. And uh, Shankaracharya is actually trying to uh, put forward this mentally speculated sound vibration, that is Tat Tvam Asi, is the supreme vibration of the Vedas. That's what Shankaracharya is saying. But our Vedic scriptures understand the chronology that first first uh, Lord Buddha said that please don't follow Vedas. Vedas are teaching wrong, ahimsa, parmo dharma, and nirvana. Then Shankaracharya is re-establishing the Vedas. And now Mahaprabhu is bringing the completeness in the understanding of the Vedas. So when Tattvam Asi is the sound vibration being purported by Shankaracharya. Here, um, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying Omkar or Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Can one can be delivered from the contamination of this material world by these sound vibrations. And just like Lord in any of his forms are non-different and absolute, just like that, these sound vibrations are not different from the Lord. In fact, Mahaprabhu says in his Shikshashtakam that Namna Akari Bahuda Nij Sarva Shakti Tatra Arpita. No? Smarane Niyame Nakala. Krishna has given all his potencies to his names, and there is no rules and regulations in chanting the name of the Lord. And just by that, one can be delivered from the contamination of this material world. Okay, so this is what is the final thing, where he continues giving more examples of how that Omkar is present in the uh, every scripture, every Veda, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Upanishad, Vedanta Sutras. And he also tells that what are the meanings of these words. Uh, Omkar is made from three words, U, and Mm. And it is explained that A stands for the Supreme Lord Himself. You know, uh, U or U stands for Srimati Radharani, the eternal consort of Krishna, and the M or Ma stands for, or M stands for the living entities. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada has also explained that Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare, in Hare, the Mahamantra, Hara is the Radharani, Haladini Shakti, and Hare, in Sanskrit, whenever there is somebody's name and name is especially for feminine, uh, uh, like Sita, when you are calling on Sita, you'll call Hey Site. So similarly, uh, the Haladini Shakti, Hara, Akarant, Stirling is the word name. So you will call Hare, Hey Hare, or Hare. That's the calling. So you're saying that your calling um, indicates uh, what the eternal servitor, that you please engage me in your service. That's the purport which Srila Prabhupada gives, that by chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, you're calling to the names to uh, engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. Okay? So with that, I'm sorry I went few minutes above. It was a long chapter as well. Um, so I would like to stop here and Simeshwar Prabhu, uh, over to you. Do you think we should see if there are a few questions or comments, corrections, or can I end this call? Over to
Yes,
you.
Guruji, go ahead this time. Yeah, you can have some question and answer section.
Okay, Hare Krishna. If somebody wants to make any comment or correct, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. This was a really heavy dose to digest. But you have made it little easy by giving us, comparison of the super soul and Jivatma, then explaining about the inferior nature. That made it easy to understand. A couple of things I still didn't understand exactly. The energy and energetic is the same, right? Or it's a
Yes.
difference?
So there is always energy and energetic when or Shakti or Shaktiman, and we cannot have somebody who is energetic but doesn't have energy. And at the
It
same
goes,
time, you cannot have energy but doesn't have energetic. So the two are actually inseparable in that sense. Uh,
right.
but Vedas also explain that by the nature, energy is uh, under the energetic. Energetic is superior, energy is inferior in that comparison.
So the super soul has a inconceivable energy, while Jivatma has a what you call energetic.
No, Jivatmas are energy, but they have small energy. They all have a small energy as well. Because so we understand this point this way, Mataji, that because jivas are part and parcel of the Supreme, so whatever quality Supreme has, jivas also have that quality. Like Supreme has some energy, Supreme has infinitesimal energy. We have some energy. Supreme has infinitesimal fame. We have some fame. Supreme has unlimited riches, unlimited money. We have some money. Does it make sense, Mataji?
Yeah. Mhm. So energy is inferior and energetic is superior,
Yes.
in short. Okay. And the Sankaracharya did Mayavadi because the supreme order it do the Mayavadi gave him a permission. But what was the timely necessity? What was that time necessity arised?
So at that time, Mataji, the chronology is this. First, when Kali Yuga started deteriorating, people started using Vedas for animal sacrifice and killing of the animal, and started using Vedas for meat eating.
Mhm.
So, um, Lord Buddha came and he said that stop following Vedas, and Ahimsa Parmo Dharma he established. And he said that don't follow Veda and aim for Nirvana. Right? So
Mhm.
Vedas went out of the scene and teachings of Lord Buddha became prominent. Then
I see.
then Shankaracharya came and he said that what Lord Buddha taught is part of the Vedas only. You can
Mhm.
achieve the nirvana or the liberation by following the teachings of the Veda only. So he reintroduced the Vedas, but he only gave the limited knowledge, that is only Brahman realization. And then comes Lord Chaitanya and he says that you're following Vedas, very good, but you're following the only part of the teachings of the Vedas. The complete teaching is that there is Brahman realization, that is liberation, but beyond that is Paramatma realization, that is a localized form of the Bhagwan, and then actual supreme personality of Godhead. That's Krishna, the personal form of the Bhagwan. And that is the when you have this complete understanding, then you have the understanding of the Vedas. So this reintroduction of the Vedas or Vedic teaching was the timely necessity of the work which was done by Shankaracharya.
Okay. Yeah, I perfectly understood now. Thank you.
Um, any other points? I see one. Oh, Hare Krishna. Amritananda.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful class. I have a realization to share and a question to ask. So you gave that good example of infinity minus infinity is still infinity. Uh, very difficult to understand conceptually. But then one definition of infinity is uska ant nahi hai. Means it is limitless. It keeps expanding, expanding, expanding. And if at all we're talking about subtraction, whatever it is at a finite point in time, and some kind of finiteness is there to it, whatever whole number or anything, it has a boundary around it. So even if you say that infinity at this stage is infinity, but literally at the next moment it has expanded more. So same thing like what Prabhupada had said, can Krishna make something which is so heavy that he can't lift it, a trick question? And he said, yes, he can make it, but the next minute his strength keeps expanding, he'd be able to lift it. So that way, I was able to understand this concept of infinity minus infinity still remains infinity. Now, my question, Prabhu, is I don't know if it's off topic because we're also talking about Shripad Sankacharya. There are two Shankaracharyas, right, Prabhu? There's some Adi Shankaracharya and then the one who propagated Mayavad philosophy maybe in 1200. I'm not sure, so I'm just want some clarification.
I think 500 years only. If I'm not wrong, I think very, very close appearance. I may be wrong.
Mahaprabhu?
I think Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had closer appearance. You can quickly check.
Okay. But there was another one before this Shankaracharya called, he was also Shankaracharya, was it? Was it that case?
780. I think in our Vedic context, Prabhuji, Adi Shankaracharya is the one I am aware of. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure of any other Shankaracharya. I mean, even now there are various Shankaracharyas.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think they are
titles.
I don't want to say that, Prabhuji, but they're in that lineage or something.
Correct.
But I'm not sure.
Okay, Prabhu. Thanks. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Over to you, Simesha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akhilesh Krishna Prabhu. Nice class, wonderful class, nice points, nicely explained. That's what is the proper understanding that we should have, the absolute knowledge, which is so amazing that how we understand the truth, the Supreme Lord, how we should understand the Supreme Lord, energy and the energetic, infinite, infinitesimal, completeness, and then completeness come from the completeness. So nice. Thank you so much. So, anything else, dear devotees? Otherwise, let's conclude. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Akhilesh Krishna Prabhu. Let's chant together. Vanchakalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhubhyev cha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnavrinda ki Jai. Virat Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananda Gaudi
Jai.
Vaishnavrinda ki Jai.
Jai.
Gauri Premanandi Hari Hari
Hari Hari Bol.
Jai.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna.